Hello, everyone. My name is Olga Rosales-Salinas, and I'm here to present San Francisco Bay Area Moms Bloom Event and Expert Panel. Our Bloom Event is here to provide support to new and expecting moms. Joining us today is pediatrician Dr. Jean Lee. A little background on Dr. Lee. She did her pediatric training at UCSF and then stayed on to work at UCSF in their nursery. After that, she joined Pacific Pediatrics in 2018 as one of their pediatricians and has been there ever since. She has two kids who have greatly augmented her pediatric training, and she's continuously learning the nuances of pediatrics as they grow. Thank you for being here so much, Dr. Lee. Please join me in welcoming her to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Is there anything you want to add to that very short bio you sent me?
Oh, no, that's
No?
basically kids will teach you things every single day.
Okay, awesome. How long have you been in the Bay?
I've been in San Francisco since I came here for training back in 2012,
Oh,
and
wow.
then have never left. Yeah,
Yeah, so you're
I've been here for
local.
almost now a decade. I know, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Awesome. So we did something really cool for this segment. We reached out to the San Francisco Bay Area Moms community at large, and we asked them to submit questions. So I'm just going to go ahead and read the first one that was sent in, which was, are there any tips, broad tips for bringing in a preemie to your home? So you have a very, very new, young preemie bundle of joy coming to your house. What would you suggest best for new and expecting moms?
For preemies, the main things for them is that basically a lot of their stuff is going to be smaller. So a lot of the stress is you probably prepared for a full-size child and you bought regular size clothes and regular size diapers, and then you bring the baby home and they're a lot smaller. And so just having the materials at home that you probably also had in the NICU. The nurses can always show you what size diapers, what size nipples they may be using if the baby's not breastfeeding, and different materials to buy before the baby even gets home. A lot of the nurses there at the NICU will teach you their standard baby care. The one thing I will say is they do vitals in the NICU every 4 hours, which you do not have to do at home. A lot of parents ask me that question as soon as they come in for their first visit. They would not send you home if they didn't feel it was safe to just do regular baby care at home. And from that point on, it's basically changing a lot of diapers, trying to feed the baby, and typical baby type care. But the biggest portion is just making sure you have preemie size stuff instead of regular baby size stuff.
Awesome. If you're going to breastfeed a preemie, do you have to be more conscious or just as much conscious of spicy foods, everything that you're injecting as a mom who's breastfeeding to a preemie?
It actually is dependent on the baby. Some babies do not care what you're eating when you breastfeed, and so spicy foods they wouldn't notice. And then other babies are very sensitive to it, and you'll notice they're a little bit more fussy right after you feed them. If you had a meal like a couple hours prior that was a little bit more caffeinated, a little bit more spicy. Definitely, some babies also are a little sensitive to dairy and other foods that make them a little bit gassy. And then other babies really don't let you eat whatever you want, and you don't have any dietary changes that you have to make.
So hopefully, hopefully you get the baby that doesn't care.
Yeah.
And now this question was something I would have asked because I grew up with Vaseline and petroleum jelly.
Yeah.
My mom used it for everything all the way until high school, I think.
Yeah.
Every time I was sick. Do you recommend that for babies still, or is that something that pediatricians have stayed away from?
Oh, no, Vaseline is great. It's
Vaseline,
a
okay.
very good barrier for the butts and for various other moisturizing parts that you want. The thing that we don't recommend is anything that's powder that the baby can inhale by mistake. But Vaseline is great. Aquaphor is basically Vaseline with a little bit of lanolin in it, and all those baby companies have created their own type of ointments to try to imitate Vaseline. So any of those types of items are great to have in the house.
And I meant using it for fevers like on the chest.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, that's what I did through high school, not on my butt.
Oh, yeah.
But
So
every
yes,
time I got
Vaseline
sick, my
definitely
mom
good.
would put it here, just like sleep in this jelly and clear it. It's supposed to clear sinus infections and things?
I don't like there's nothing against it for using it. I've never definitely some parents ask about Vicks, which has a clear ointment that they put
Yeah.
on the chest. I would definitely just follow the instructions on how much. I think sometimes the Vicks vapor rub will have like a how much you're allowed to use per kid. And that's kind of a Vaseline type ointment. And general Vaseline on the chest seems okay to me as long as the baby's not going to eat it.
Okay. All right. Cool. So maybe not on the hands. And okay.
And even if they do, I'm sure my child's eaten a ton of Vaseline by now. It will go straight on through.
Okay. I love hearing that. Awesome. Another question was family members want to know if keratosis pilaris, which runs in our family, will ever clear up, how to mitigate it, avoid it, or what to do when it happens.
So
Am I pronouncing that right? Keratosis pilaris.
keratosis pilaris.
Pilaris. Okay.
So it's like bumpy skin, typically on the arms, sometimes on the legs. It is usually just a very prominent sweat glands that get kind of irritated more easily that you can feel on the baby. Moisturizing is the best care that you can do for it, essentially. Sometimes if it gets irritated, red looking at all, sometimes you can put steroid cream on it. It typically does last for most of a person's life, and there's nothing that you have to do for it. It's mostly just rough feeling, and some people get itchy.
Okay. Wow, that's a long, their whole lifetime. That must be a struggle. What exactly is colic, and what can I do about it? Was a big question on our on the.
So colic is a hard one because there's definitely a range of babies on how fussy they are, all the way to a colicky baby. The colicky babies tend to be the ones that, even though you do basically the normal trying to calm your baby type of care, you still spend hours swaying them, rocking them, shushing them, and they are just very hard to settle down. A lot of babies are all naturally very fussy by the end of the day. They're just overly tired. Colicky babies tend to be fussy all day long and sometimes into the evening, a good number of hours per day. And then it usually peaks around 4 months of age, versus typical baby fussiness might get better by 6 weeks of age. So the colicky parents or parents of colicky babies do know that they have a colicky baby if it just kind of keeps going. Thankfully, it naturally goes away. You kind of figure out your baby and how they like to be rocked, how they like to be soothed, which baby bouncer works best for your baby. They really just want to be held by their parents the whole time, which sometimes can be very tiring. So it's nice when there's like family around to help hold the baby. And then everybody should always sleep whenever the baby's sleeping, because other times the baby's going to be a little bit more needy than when the baby is obviously not awake.
Okay, yeah. Good luck to those parents and to this mom who asked that question. Now this this woman sent this comment, a question, or could have been a dad who sent this in, and I feel like it's a question, but it's also like lightweight brag, which was, my baby doesn't cry much. Is that normal?
Yes, they are
Congratulations, mom.
definitely. Yes, that is definitely a very lucky parent. It can be very normal. All babies' amount of crying is based on the temperament of the babies. I've had babies come in where they just basically sit and stare at me the whole visit and are very calm, versus other babies who recognize strangers and are not calm during their well child checks. So there can be a full range as long as the baby is properly communicating to the parents when they need something, like their diaper is dirty or when they're hungry, and they don't cry the rest of the time. It's very normal to have a pretty chill baby.
That's so cool.
Very lucky
Like
too.
I said, very lucky mom. How often should I feed my newborn baby?
So for the newborn baby, the recommendations is usually at least 8 times in a day. And then, so if you just take 8 times in a day and 24-hour day, it comes out to every 3 hours or so. Obviously, some babies will cry and want to feed sooner than the every 3 hours. And then other babies you'll have to wake them up to feed them. And so then it's best not to let them feed or go too long in between feeds. As long as you get in those 8 feeds per day initially to try to also make sure the baby gets enough calories, then it's okay. Versus if the baby is losing weight pretty rapidly, then we're pretty more stringent about the try not to let your baby go too long in between feeds.
Okay, and that you'll know that when we go to the wellness checks and we get
Yeah.
weighed in.
Yeah,
So,
the baby gets weighed every check-in. They come with us, and if the baby's gaining weight nicely, I'm like, follow the baby's signals. It's okay to let them go just a little bit longer, versus, oh, the baby is kind of dropping a little bit more than we would expect. So let's try to get in a couple extra feeds. So you get a lot of cues from your pediatrician for which way to be more lax or not more lax in your feeds.
the next one is fun. What should I be looking for in a baby's diaper?
Uh, Basically, you probably should expect, especially for a newborn, a poop every time the baby eats. Usually, once the baby has transitioned from that thick meconium poop that the baby has when they're born, you get yellow, like seedy little gritty little poops constantly. As the baby gets bigger, then the baby's poop will become less frequent. Sometimes the color of the poop stays yellow, sometimes it goes orange, it goes back to green sometimes. Any color really within that range is okay as long as it's not red, so like signaling blood. That would mean you should talk to your pediatrician, or pure white. That's a little bit odd, and that should also mean you should talk to your pediatrician about that. All the other ranges of colors for the poop is fine. Definitely some babies will start skipping days of poop as they get older because they're able to hold in more poops in between feeds. And then eventually you'll get a big blowout if they skip too many days.
Fun. What should I do if my baby has a fever?
So for if your baby has a fever, it really depends on the age. So if a baby is under a month of age, and then sometimes for some babies under 2 months of age, if they have not yet received any of their vaccines, it is considered pretty serious if the baby has a fever. And in the medical community, an official fever is 100.4 Fahrenheit, so 38 Celsius. It's a pretty strict number, but anything that's kind of close to that, we start watching pretty closely. Usually for anything that is a true fever for a newborn, I usually do say call us immediately. And if we're not open, then I do advise going to the emergency room for a check-in to make sure to look for signs of infection in such a young baby. As the baby gets older and has actually an immune system that has started developing, then usually a fever might mean that they caught a cold, since everything is going around right now, or some other type of illness. And so that would be a reason to, if the baby seems pretty happy with that fever and it doesn't seem to last very long, okay to watch the baby at home as long as they're hydrated, but also probably worth reaching out to your pediatrician the first couple of times to check in until you get into the flow of all the colds that go on during the winter.
Right. I mean, that's what advice nurses are for, right?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
remember calling them all the time. I still
Uh-huh.
call them all the time because I don't know. I'm not a licensed pediatrician like
Yep,
you. I just have Google, which
yep, yep, yep. Can
doesn't always
sometimes scare you,
provide.
but sometimes
Yes.
reassure you. Yeah.
Right. So definitely the advice nurse is there and available. So um, the last one we got from our audience was, should I worry if my baby spits up after eating? How much is normal?
So it depends on how pissed off the baby is when she spits up or he spits up after eating. So if a baby is a happy spitter, as in they ate a ton, they were kind of greedy because they wanted to be held and they were fed a little bit extra, and then they spit up and are perfectly happy afterwards, then you might have a spitty baby, or but they are fine to continue doing as they normally do. If a baby is very pissed off while they're eating and tends to spit up and then be very pissed off about it, as in they feel like they're uncomfortable, they're either gassy or they might have a little bit of reflux, then it's worth reaching out to your pediatrician to discuss, like, oh, is it worth doing baby gas drops? Do the baby need reflux medications? But it really depends on how uncomfortable the baby is. And the reason you go in for so many weight checks in the beginning for the baby is if the baby is gassy and then they spit up a lot, but the baby is gaining great weight, frequently we will say it's okay to just let the baby be because she's actually getting in enough food, even though she seems to spit up a lot. Versus if the baby wasn't gaining weight, then it's definitely more reasonable to maybe treat it with a medication of some form.
So don't miss those appointments.
Yes.
Um, do you think that the spitting up it could be related to mom's diet?
Sometimes it can be. I've definitely heard from moms who say that, oh, I've noticed every time I eat any form of dairy, the baby is more spitty, or I eat something spicy and the baby is more spitty, and they've cut it out and then it's a little bit better. So if those babies are more sensitive to it, I would say it's reasonable to give it a try. The main thing I want to always caution is it is already so important for mom to take in enough calories if they are breastfeeding. So to experiment with removing everything from the diet, I definitely don't recommend. Maybe one or two things if you really feel like, oh, that's the culprit and that's causing my baby to be pissed off, it might be worth trying, but keeping in mind that you have to make back the nutrition in some other way. The more nutrition the mom takes in, the better and easier the breast milk will come.
Those are all the questions from the community. Do you have anything that you want to add for new and expecting moms?
And really, it's just the weight is one of the most important things we do when you come in for a weight check. Usually, if the baby is gaining great weight, we let the baby be as they would like. So they could be as fussy as they like. They could be as happy as they like. They can do tummy time or not do tummy time, depending on their mood for the day, as long as they're gaining weight nicely. It really tells us they're developing nicely if their weight gain is also nice. Versus if we get nervous about the baby's weight, we usually just have the parents come in for a couple more weight checks to kind of give guidance on how to move a baby along towards good weight gain. Really, the weight is the one key factor we check in every time they come in for visits. In the beginning, there's a lot of visits with your pediatrician to ask all the questions that you might have, such as, oh, my baby does this, what do I do about that? And as you kind of get into the groove of it and the baby's weight gain is good, then we start spacing out the visits. And basically you come in less and less often until they are running around teenagers for you.
Yes. Can you explain what tummy time is? And is it as important as the rumor has me believing it is?
So tummy time is basically at some point trying to put the baby down so that they have a chance to work out their neck. So whether a lot of people will buy those baby mats where they'll put their baby down on their belly and the baby will try to lift their head as much as they can. The head is usually the largest part of a baby. So it's like weight lifting the biggest part of them. And it's very tiring. Sometimes the baby will lift the head for a second and then it'll go thunk down. But it's over time, they'll practice working on the muscles of the neck so that they can lift it. And eventually the baby will be looking around pretty eagerly because they got the neck strength for it. Some babies don't like to be put on the ground for their tummy time. So some parents will lean back and put the baby on their chest so that they can do tummy time on the parent. Whichever of those that allows the baby to kind of work out their neck is reasonable for tummy time. Some babies love tummy time and will do it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes at a time. And some babies, like my children, hated tummy time and will do
Mine
it for like
too.
a minute at a time. And so
Yeah.
then you kind of just have to work it in there when you can.
Yeah, they hated it, and so it made me hate it. I was like, oh, we're not going to do this.
Exactly. Yep.
But they still worked out their neck muscles. So,
Yep. As their vision improves, they definitely want to look around. So even if they're on you looking around, but not fully laying down on their belly, they are working out their neck. So you kind of accommodate to the baby and their personality.
do you have anything else you want to add before we wrap up? Oh, here.
Nothing that I
Oh,
can.
here. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for providing expert advice that we can all trust. So thank you for being here, and thank you for helping new and expecting moms for the San Francisco Bay Area community. And we look forward. I'm going to go ahead and tag all of your contact information in case any of the moms have any more questions, any follow-up questions to everything that you answered today for our community. It'll be all at the bottom of this video. So thank you so much for being here, Dr. Lee, and I hope you have a great afternoon.
Everybody enjoy the event.
Bye.
Bye.